for joining us as we have a very important topic on this episode of our disability presentation. This is where we are seeking to share resources for those involved in the disability slash possibility ministries around the North America division and probably around the world. So if you're listening in different parts, thank you for joining us. We'll be having a very special topic. We have a wonderful guest on our program, and you're going to hear more about her just now. But I'm going to ask Luis to maybe share a few words and give us a prayer to begin.
Yes, welcome again to everyone. And today promises to be very enlightening. It's a it's a topic that I'm extremely interested in. I have never really been a professional in this area, and I am glad that we have an expert in the area to, enlighten us on this topic. And I hope that, if you have any questions that you're able to ask and get your questions answered. And then, afterwards we can provide more information for you about our guest. So with that, we'll go into prayer and we'll start without delay. All right, let us pray. Our loving, kind, merciful Father on high, we thank you for these blessings of the day. We thank you for this interview, and we thank you for blessing Dr. Battles with such a gift and all that you have done for her in her life. I pray that you will be with each of us here in this interview, and we pray that others who are listening and tuned in will see the value and understand the importance of this aspect of our ministry and our work in the vineyard, and that it will benefit your people and they will come to call you blessed. I ask that you be with us this day and continue to guard, and protect our lives. In your mighty, powerful name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Luis. Luis is a disability advocate. She is a member of Faith SDA Church, and just a powerful individual with lots of testimonies to share about God's goodness. When I say powerful, I'm saying God is working miracles in Luis. And just want to say thank you, Luis, for what you're doing for this ministry. I am the disability coordinator for Georgia Cumberland Conference, and today it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jennifer Sankey-Battles. She is a performance psychologist and a registered nurse with a passion to teach individuals ways to live healthy, happy, and holy. She is the director of health ministry and disability ministry at the Southeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. She has 40 plus years of experience in healthcare and extensive accomplishments in leadership, teaching, motivational speaking, quality management, process involvement, safety, and grant writing with the procurement of substantial funds for several organizations. Dr. Sankey-Battles is a graduate of Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona, Andrews University in Barron Springs, Michigan, Southern University in Collegedale, Tennessee, and Valencia Community College in Orlando. As Director of Health and Disability Ministry, Dr. Battles has oversight of health and wellness and disability programs in 171 churches and 14 schools within the conference. Using innovative and creative ways for training, she educates on lifestyle practices to enhance mental, physical, and spiritual well-being in church members and community residents with and without limitations. To help fund mission-related activities, she writes grants with the receipt of up to $250,000 in awards. She enjoys teaching, sharing knowledge, and collaborating with others. Dr. Sankey accredits her accomplishments first to God, then her parents, Jimmy Sankey and Susie Sankey, and her siblings who are her spiritual mentors. She aims to please God and fulfill his purpose for her life. The Bible scripture that guides her life is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4, verse 13. And her lifelong goal is to be prepared for Jesus Christ's soon return and to live in heaven with him. So before Dr. Sankey comes in and speaks, I just want you to share this on your platform wherever you may be, just share it. We want others to be aware, and we want those, especially in the ministries of the disabilities slash possibilities. Listen, we want you to get your ministries energized. And so please get your pen, pencils, your notes. We want to learn as much as possible from that, Dr. Sankey.
Wow. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I met Dr. Brooks probably it's been about a month or two ago, and we were at a disabilities conference here in Orlando. And when you contacted me to talk about grants, actually at that conference, we saw so many things that kind of tied with the things that we're doing within our individual conferences. But we began to talk about how do we collaborate? How do we actually share knowledge? And one of the things I kept saying at that conference, I remember, we need to get grants for some of the things that we're trying to do. So
That's right.
today, I'm going to talk about why grants matter. Why do grants matter for the mission that we are trying to do to help finish God's work? And so as I'm going through this, take notes. Feel free to raise your hand. There will be a period for question and answers, but I do know that what we're going to talk about today can make a huge difference in the work that you're doing in your churches, at your conferences, and in your communities. And so I'm going to share just a few slides, and then I'm going to actually show you a few grants that are possibilities that you, within your organization, they're actually across the United States, so it's not local, that you may want to consider. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is grants. What are they? Why do we need them? Who has them? Who has the money? And the thing that you'll hear me say over and over in this presentation, don't leave money on the table. There are so many organizations and foundations and individuals even out there who have money that they want to invest in something that is very significant that is going to make a difference. So we'll talk about what are grants, we'll talk about the types of grants, we'll talk about how to search for grants, and then we'll talk about that process of what it means to actually apply for a grant. Now, I've been writing grants probably it's probably been about 4 or 5 years. So the first grant I wrote was for $25,000. Thank God we were able to get that grant. The next one we wrote actually was working with some pilots out of New York, and they had a program that they were teaching young children or youth how to fly planes. And so they wanted about $10,000. And we'll talk about what you need for the grantor to actually pay attention to you, because there's so many people that are wanting the grant dollars. So you have to stand out. Whatever you write, whatever your plan is, it has to stand out. And there's some keywords that we'll talk about. So for that one, we also got a grant for the pilot program. The first grant that I mentioned, I got for $25,000. And next year we applied for a $250,000 grant from the same organization, and it was awarded. So the $250,000 grant was over a period of 3 years. And so sometimes some grants are for a 1-year period, and sometimes they're over 3 years or over 5 years. So we'll talk about the type of grants, we'll talk about how to search for them, and we'll talk about the process. So there are many grantors out there. There's organizations, there's foundations, there's individuals. With disabilities, it's really important to think about what are the organizations that are focusing on disabilities. Hospitals, sometimes there are different agencies within your community that may be focusing on disabilities. And you really want to choose an organization that is going to be your cheerleader, that's going to be your partner, that not only will they give you money, but they will give you other resources like people or volunteers to help carry forth the mission and the ministry that you're working on. There are also foundations. There are individuals, maybe families, who may have large endowments. Someone maybe has a passion for disabilities. Maybe they had a son or a daughter, a mother, a grandmother, someone in the family, maybe even themselves, that they now want to have this foundation with their name on it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I just wrote a grant about 2 weeks ago, and it was an individual family, a family who has this foundation. And then individuals. Individuals are probably not as frequent as organizations and foundations, but when you're looking for grants, you look at everybody that may possibly be someone who will provide you with dollars. So there's different types of grants. There's local, there's state, and there's federal. What you want to keep in mind is starting at the local level is probably your greatest success. That's where we had the great success with $25,000, then $250,000, because that particular organization wanted to invest in their immediate community. So when you start out writing grants, begin to narrow your focus. I would stress that, narrow your focus to look at the local level first. If per chance you can't find anything at the local level, go to the state level. Now, working at the conference office where I work, I look at this local and state because Southeastern Conference is over the entire state of Florida, parts of Georgia. So I want to look at a grant where the money can be used in any of the churches or any of the schools across Florida or in Georgia. Then federal and governmental grants. Those are big, large grants. They're in the millions of dollars. And if you get those, you are really doing well. So let me give you an example. When COVID came about, the government was giving out millions of dollars for resources, for companies, for organizations to educate people on prevention of COVID, to provide masks, hand sanitizer, all of that. So when there's something big that's affecting so many people, a larger number of people, society, the federal will step in and they will actually begin to provide money and resources for education for organizations. And what I would say is always be on the mark and ready to go when something happens in our society. So that means that whatever grant you write at the local level, you always want to think in the event something breaks out and across the United States or globally, will I be poised and ready to go? An example also would be as last week I was watching the news, and here in Florida, they had we have hurricanes in here in Florida, so hurricanes is a big deal. So they actually had a program about a week ago where they were training community individuals, healthcare providers, if there's a disaster, how will we support the individuals with a disability? So again, sometimes those grant dollars are about education. Sometimes they're about simulation, meaning that you actually bring people together and simulate the process so that you will be ready. So I think about our churches. Have we ever had a simulation of a disaster at the church? So if there were people in the audience that could not hear, or maybe had impaired vision, or could not walk, had mobility issues, do we have the resources and have we trained the people to safely move them out of the building so that they too can be, in a safe haven? So then when you're looking at grants, you want to think really not only locally, but globally, not only within the church, but also in the community. So when you go to the grant search engine, there's some that are free. There's some that you pay for. If you get a free one, it's very limited. Oftentimes, it just shows you strictly what the description of the grant is, but it will not allow you to access the grant. So it's good to know what the grantor is looking for, but if you cannot open up the full application and apply, that does limit your ability to get resources. There is a grant engine called Candid Foundation Directory. If you go there, they kind of can direct you to different grants. A lot of information, a lot of good information. Sometimes even on the Candid Foundation, they will have training classes for grant writing or ways to get your grant noticed. And so that's a great resource if you want to check that out. And then there are also paid search engines. There's the Grant Watch, and there's also the Grant Station. Grant Watch also has a limited function that's free. Grant Station likewise. So if you think that you're going to be applying for more than one grant, I would encourage you to consider maybe getting a paid subscription, because what you want to think about, and we'll talk about this more, when you fill out one grant, technically you should fill out 3, 4, or 5 grants, because if the one grantor does not give you the money, You have now put, sown your seeds. I call it sowing your seeds out there to other grantors. And someone may just pick up your project and say, okay, this is a good project. This is something I want to work on. I'm not sure what my computer like this one out. So again, the next thing you want to look at is you want to not only look at your subscriptions, you also want to look at start searching. So what are you looking for? So before you start searching for grants, I must tell you, you must know your problem. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? You have to be crystal clear. You can't just say, I need $50,000 or I need $10,000 or I need $5,000. You have to say, this is a problem and I'm trying to solve the problem. So I will give you an example. I actually wrote a grant for disabilities and was awarded it from the Versa Foundation. And the problem I was trying to solve was that I know that individuals within the church setting and even in the community are not well versed and educated on disabilities. So how do I know that? How do I know that? Well, I've been a Seventh-day Adventist all my life, and it wasn't until I got into this position that I began to pay more attention about the environment where we worship, and where I play in the community. And I noticed that when people with a disability are present, they're oftentimes sitting to the side. They're not involved. They're sitting in the pews. They're not involved. So the problem I was trying to solve is to increase the awareness of our leaders, of our members, and even the person with a disability and how to get involved. So now I've reached 3 people, right? So I was able to convince and write in such a way to tell Versa, we need to improve education, not only improve education, but we need to actually be able to simulate of how those individuals get involved. We don't only want to simulate it, but we want to make sure that they have a network of support around them. So if you're trying to solve a new problem, and to me that was a new problem, or it may be something that is existing. Maybe you already have structures in place in your churches, in your communities. That may be so. But if you do not, if you do, you can still write a grant to strengthen and enhance them more. Again, it just takes you to know what you're trying to solve. What are you trying to improve? The next step is know your population. When you're writing these grants, you have to know your population. And what that means is you need to know, am I targeting male, female? Am I targeting young or older people? Am I targeting just individuals with disabilities? Am I targeting caregivers? Who is my audience? Who am I really trying to target with this grant? Who's going to benefit? That's the word. Who's going to benefit? Is it just in my zip code? Is it just in Orange County where I live? Or will I go to Osceola County, Seminole, and Lake County, or another county? So it's important that you have already scoped it out. You've already have your data. You know where the need is, and you begin to cast your seeds as far as you can, but it needs to be manageable for you. So you never want to cast your seeds far, because the grantor will hold you accountable for whatever you say you're going to do. If you're going across 3 and 4 counties, if you're going across 171 churches, the expectation that it will be represented in your report that you provide to the grantor. Next thing, you want to know your processes, the production, your partners, and the estimated price. So if you're thinking about making a sandwich, you certainly need bread to make a sandwich, right? Unless you're going to make a little lettuce wrap or something like that. But you need certain things in place in order for you to solve the problem. So you need to really think about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Who's going to help me? Who's going to volunteer? What are the supplies I need? What am I going to do to advertise it? Is there special technology that I need? You need to know those processes from start to finish. And the grantor wants to know that, because remember, it's your project. It's in your head, but now you need to put it on paper. So what does that production look like? When they make a car, when they build a house, what does that look like? You can't leave out certain parts. You can't just do the framework of getting the building. You have to actually put in the plumbing, put in the electricity. So what's the electricity that's going to make your project actually get going, light up, get people there, get people coming, and then estimated price. You want to estimate as close as possible to what you believe the project will take. the grantor will always ask you, so what is your organization giving towards this project? So many of our budgets, I know for me, at the conference office, I share my budget with Health Ministries. So that means I'm splitting my budget in two. That's why grants are so important to me right now, because I really need more money to make sure that I can carry forth the mission that God has called me to do. So you estimate it and you want to make it close to that, because most of these grantors kind of have an idea of what a project should take. If you say you need $100,000, but you're going to spend it on people to work and do the project, they're going to scratch it. They don't want you to pay people to do the project. They want you to get partners. They want their money to go for the people who need the money. So if you say, okay, in our church, we need some ramps, or we need provide access or accommodations for individuals with disabilities, they're more likely to be drawn into and, have that emotional draw in and say, yes, I could see why that is important. Yes, I see why the ramp up to the pulpit. Yes, I see why, closed caption. Yes, I see why they need improved technology. So again, you want to make sure that you do all of those in step 3. And then lastly, what is that outcome? What is the product, right? What does that look like? It has to look really great. It has to have benefited many people more than you've done it before. So what I was able to write for Versa Grant is I wrote that my outcome was that I would see more people participating in the church service who had disabilities. Right. And we know there's many different disabilities, not just the wheelchair, the hearing, or the sight. There's many. And so I wanted to tell them this is what we would see different. And then make sure your strategies are strong strategies. We cannot hope. Hope is not a word. It's not measurable. We hope to have more people. That's not acceptable. You have to be pretty definitive that you're going to reach more people with the money that they have provided for you. And not only do you want to have a strategy, but it has to be a sustained plan. So what does that look like? So if I give you $10,000 for your project, it's only for 1 year. What happens after the year? Does a project stop? Does a program stop? Or does it continue on? So what you want to do is you want something to say, we are going to sustain this program by fundraisers, by getting sponsors. Even if you have a sponsor that gives you $50 a month or $25 a month, it is going to help sustain the program. An example that I have is here at Southeastern Conference, we have a Be Health program that we are promoting, and it's breast health, because so many women are getting breast cancer. And so October is great that we kind of advertise it, but we figured year round, we wanted to make sure that we kept the awareness alive. So what we have done is on our tithe envelope, we have put on there breast health awareness. So individuals, if they want to donate towards that, they can do that. And over the last, I would say it's been 2 years now, going on 2 years now. Now it's not a lot of money, but it's money. We've gotten up to $3,000. So again, if you promote it, and you can't put everything on the tithe envelope, so I'm not promoting that, but I'm just saying people giving systematically towards something can help you to sustain your program. Having fundraisers, having car washes, maybe selling promotional things, t-shirts or mugs or something like that can help you keep your program going. I was speaking with someone just recently, and she's over community services, and she's like, you know what? I'm really thinking about having a thrift store that people can come buy things. They can put everything in the bag for $1 or $2, not anything really high amount, but again, it's income that shows that we are doing something proactively to keep the program going after the money has gone out. So then when you start searching for grants, you want to look for a grantor using the search engine, review the description, but the most important thing that I must stress to you today is make sure that the grantor's mission aligns with your organizational mission. You do not want to get a grantor who is a right wing or a left wing or kind of don't align with you. Even if they have the dollars, you want to make sure that there is total alignment. 2 reasons. Number 1, we represent our mission. We're representing Christ. And then number 2, if their mission is not aligned with our mission, we can send the wrong message to the people that we've accepted money from someone who's not aligned with us. And then most organizations who have grants, if your mission does not align with their mission, they're not going to give you the dollars. So you don't want to spend time needlessly with, spending your time filling out the grant and then being denied. And then lastly, choose 3 to 5 grants to apply for. The good thing about grants is once you've applied for one, the next one gets easier. The next one gets easier because remember, you have all the elements, and we'll talk about the elements of the grant that you'll fill out. So only thing you're doing is you're going to change it. You may change the objective just a little bit, but just your executive summary, your background of the organization, all of those are going to be in place. So it's going to make it pretty easy for you to go on to the next grant. So let's talk about the grant elements. Most grantors want a letter of intent. And the reason they do this is because they want to review individuals or organizations who are applying for a grant. So they want to know, is it worth our while for them to fill out this application? So you write the letter, it's usually a 1-pager, it's just saying, what is the problem, the proposed project, and every time you're writing a grant, you're writing proposed project unless it's already in place, and how it will be solved, and why you should be awarded the grant funds. Remember, there's many organizations, individuals who are looking for dollars, and you want to make sure that you can stand out as to why your organization should get the dollars. And then once the letter of intent is sent in, the company may or may not send you an invitation letter. So they'll say, congratulations, you're invited to continue with the grant application. Or they may say, at this time, you're not invited to continue on with the grant application. In those cases, don't be discouraged, not at all. What you want to do is, if you can, is maybe do a little bit, look back over your information and see maybe if there's something you could have written differently in a different way. And so it's important that you take time writing grants. They're not just thrown on a piece of paper. You literally have to think it through. Not only do you read it, but someone else reads it. Recently, I was working with an organization, and the individual sent me the letter of intent. And when I read it, it was a full page, but the content was not strong enough. And so I changed a few things in it for her, sent it back to her, she sent it off, and then we did get the invitation to go on to the next step. But always have someone else read what you're writing, because it's easy to write and think it's all good, and it can be, but sometimes just rewording it. And I would also caution, limit the use of AI to write your document. Write your document and then run it through AI, or write your document first with your own thoughts, your own words. If you run it through, like I run mine through Grammarly, just make sure my grammar's right and the punctuation's right, and they have an AI as well. And I sometimes will push the AI, but I don't always accept what they say because it may sound too flowery or too this or too that. I don't speak like that. And so most grantors, be mindful, it's not how much you write, but it's the quality of what you write. They want to see clear, concise wording. Most times they'll limit your wording to 250. Sometimes they'll give you 500 words, but don't go over the word limit and don't write so many flowery things. Just make it very concise so that they can follow. And then the next step is the grant application. So when we get to the grant application, have a name for your project, a catchy name, not anything 10 words or whatever. Make it short and sweet. Make it short and sweet. So mine is, I'm involved. This is for my disability. When I'm involved, disability inclusion, right? So that's short. Disability inclusion is well known in society. Inclusion. You read about it all the time. So you can put your own little twist on there, but make sure that they can understand it. And then your introduction to the grant application. There's always an introduction. They just want to know really briefly, what is this project? What you're doing, what are you asking for? The introduction should be about a paragraph, and it really should say everything in that paragraph. My project is this, I'm solving this problem, I need this much money to do it, and that should be about it. And then your executive summary. Your executive summary and your background of the organization, those are probably the most tedious to write, but they're the most important to write, in my opinion, because if they know your organization is well established, is rooted, grounded, and they know that you have resources that you can pull from, people, finances, to help this program work, they're more likely to acknowledge your grant application. They'll look at it, and they'll be interested. So your executive summary, and this is, several ways you can do this. If you have not written one before, you can go online and say, how do I write an executive summary? You write it, run it through your Grammarly or whatever you want to run it through, make sure your grammar is correct, but make sure your sentence structure kind of flows, right? And then also the background of your organization. It doesn't need to be extensive. I just wrote one. Like I said, I've written several grants for disabilities since I've been here. And I just write down when our conference started back in 1991, under the leadership of, Edgecombe. And then I wrote about, it started with 5 churches or however many churches it was. And then now we're up to 171 churches. We have schools. And so you want to write down, and the services we provide. That is important. Your organization has to have in there the background, the services you currently provide, and are you expanding them? So even when I wrote the one for my organization here, I wrote that we have Disabilities Ministries, but we're expanding it. Our goal is to reach more people. So those are words that stand out. Expanding, reach more people, extending, those are words that pop. And for an organization within a church or within a conference, you want to make sure that you say within your background that you serve all people, anyone who needs your help. So our mission is sharing hope and restoring wholeness. So in my writing, I wrote the mission because that's required in the background when you're writing it. And as I wrote it with my project, I'm involved, Disability Inclusion, I wrote, I believe that this will help share hope and restore wholeness in individuals who are not involved in ministry right now or in the community. And make sure you always connect the church and the community of the people you're reaching, not only the Seventh-day Adventist church, but you're going to reach other churches. So that is important because many times our focus is just on us, but think about the surrounding churches where you are, where you worship, who you can engage, who you can actually get involved in helping to promote whatever project you're doing. The next thing on the application is a problem. The problem statement is very much like writing a research paper for me when I read all of this. But what is the problem? It's not that you don't have enough money. Like you can't write, I don't have enough money to do mission. You want to write the problem is whatever that problem is. So I'm going to pause just for a moment, and I'm going to ask you to open your mic, and I want you to think of one problem that you would like to solve that you think you could solve if you had the money.
Let's see. Infrastructure change. There's usually some issues with infrastructure.
With what?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, okay. Okay, can you expound on that just a little more?
Accessible bathrooms, countertop sinks, the kitchen access, the doors, they have to push to go up to the individual has to walk up to the door and push it, so that have the things to press so that the door can swing open on its own, or motion sensor that the door slides instead of, them having to push it themselves. And some doors aren't light and some doors are difficult to open.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I would
So
say,
go ahead.
Transportation for many individuals, many churches. We get a call, it's kind of challenging unless you have a vehicle or you have to rent, so if there's a way for churches to gain access to the funds to even purchase some vehicles, that would be great.
Transportation is really big, huge, because sometimes individuals with disabilities live alone. And most of the transportation, think about it, they'll take them to the doctor, but how many companies do you know that will pick them up and take them to church? So that's a huge thing. And so when you're writing the grant, you write that. Transportation is available to take them to community, like to their activities of daily living. But those who want to go to worship services, we don't have those resources. And so there are vans, there are vehicles that are designed with, ramps, lifts, different things like that. And from home, if they want to come, we want to make it possible. Thank you for sharing about our access and accommodations at church. When things are high, or you got to push the door open, or rely on someone to stand at the door to open the door, all of those, but you write that in your grant when you're writing. Currently, we have someone standing at the door, which may not always be available. We need a wave or a push button, something automatic way for them to be able to enter the building without the manpower being there. So think about your goals and objectives of the project. And really, there are some big goals and objectives for disability. And you can find those really on, if you can just go to the disability website, you can find it on there. You go there and it's usually access, accommodation, structural barriers, attitudinal barriers. Use those words because they know those are in there. And then you can actually pull out your objectives. What are you trying to accomplish? And again, if we were to go back to the example of the structures, the narrow bathroom doors or the high countertops, our goal and objective is to make access easier for individuals with a disability. So with access, there's that word again. You're actually just saying that. That's a very easy objective. Improve access, increase, the opportunity for individuals to attend church. So again, think about that. And once you start writing grants, you begin to think about it. You're walking and you're thinking about it, and you just jot it down, because it may not be for this project, but for another project that you may see something that can add value. And I would say keep your goals and objectives very short, 3, maybe 4, because they know that if you have 10 objectives, you're not going to accomplish any of those. In the 4 or the 3 that you do, try to have them integrated and interrelated, so that they see if you can do one, most likely you can do the other. Whatever goals and objectives you put down for that project, that is what they're going to measure you on when you write the grant report. Most grantors want to report quarterly, especially if you have a grant for usually about a year or even 3 years. They want quarterly reports because most of them have to go back to the stakeholders to report on how that money is being used. Some grantors may want you only to report once a year, at the end or near the term or the end. But what I would advise you to do is get a book, just a simple little book like this, blank pages. Everything you do, you write it down. Everything. If you, like right now for disabilities, for me, we have started a support group online on Zoom. I wrote that down. We're doing a retreat in September. I wrote that down. So when the grantor asked me, how did you spend my $10,000? It's going to be really easy for me to write that down. When I was at camp meeting, I had a table. I had brochures about disabilities, increasing people's awareness. Again, that's another way. So again, it is a matter of knowing really clearly your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? At camp meeting, my goal was to increase the awareness of individuals about disabilities. That was my goal, because we're kind of almost like our focus, we're almost blindsided. I see your hand, Ms. Herbert.
Yes. One of the questions is asked, is there actually a grant for transportation?
So there are grantors who will give you money for whatever you need it for. Because sometimes it's just very broad. It's like for disabilities. The grant I just wrote about 2 weeks ago, it was a broad grant. It said for disabilities. I looked at the way, that was one of the words that popped out, and I'll actually show you in a few minutes, where when you're looking for grants, there's so many of them. All you want is somebody who has a broad term. You don't want anyone who says only for transportation. Why is that? Is because what if you need the money for, let's see, for something else still pertaining to disabilities? You don't want to be locked into transportation. Possibility you may apply for that grant, but just know that transportation is only to maintain that, purchase the vehicle, find out if it's to maintain the vehicle, Is it for the insurance of the vehicle? So you want to make sure that if you ask for a grant, if it's for transportation, can I do all those things? And can the van be used for anything other than transporting people with a disability? So you want to be mindful. And granted, if you're applying for that, most likely that's what you want it for. But that's a really good question. That's why when you read the application, you have to decide, can I achieve this? Am I agreeing to this? Because when you get the money, they have you sign that you agree to use it only for what it was intended to use for. And we all can do that, but you want to make sure that is within that area. And then again, we talked about existing services. If you have things in place already, how many people have you reached already? And how many people do you think you can reach above that? So if you're reaching 100 people, don't say you're going to reach 500 people, because that takes a lot of work to do. I mean, a lot of advertising, a lot of word of mouth. And listen, it would be better to say I can reach 50 more people, or I can reach 100 more people. And then if you reach 500 more people, when you write your report, they're like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So you really want to make sure that you're realistic. You can double it. You can say 200 people, especially if you have a very good strategy of how you're going to do that. So online is great, because again, when you do the online, especially if you record your programs or whatever, I don't record my Zoom for disabilities, because a lot of times there's a lot of sensitive topics and things like that. But what you can do is you can, just like you're doing on this platform, educating people about what resources are available. You put that on YouTube, you put that on any platform, and you watch the number of people who watched it or whatever, that's going to get your numbers up. It's going to get your numbers up. If you're on social media, Facebook, they're hitting you, they're reading your stuff, that's going to get your numbers up. So what you want to show the grantor is you're going to reach individuals with disabilities by any means necessary. You're going to do all you can. So one of my commitments is, and Dr. Brooks and I talked about it, is, Facebook, that's social media, Instagram, all those social media platforms, just trying to get our name out there. It takes a little bit, takes a lot of energy. What I said to him, once a week, I'm going to make a commitment to at least write one little blurb or something about disabilities, so that people can begin to connect with me and I connect with them. So last week, I just wrote about when I got into this role, didn't know much about disabilities, and what I'm doing now to try to learn more. This week, I'll write about something else, just to be transparent and let people know I need you to help me to learn. And that's kind of how I wrote that particular Facebook platform, because you want individuals with disabilities to realize that they have something to offer, and that is to educate us of what they really do need. All right, I think that's the last slide. So any questions before I go on to showing you the grant watch and what I look for when I go there?
Yes. As a heavy activist for persons with disabilities who have been a part of grant writing and involved in the whole process of.
Ooh. I'm sorry.
I think her screen froze. So in light of that, I just wanted to share we do have some questions. Some have come.
When it comes to based on what they say, it should be on their offering, or is it that we just do our proposal, have the figure as to what we need, and then they will tell us whether or not they can give us that grant amount? Like, let's say, for example, I have a proposal for $100,000, right? And that's what it's going to equate to. And I send it into this grantor. Would they say no to it because it doesn't match, or is there something that they'll have another level, another tier that grant could match?
Okay, so you could ask for, let's say, probably do something like, if you ask for $100,000 for your project, and they're giving, let's say they're giving 100,000. They may not, if they read they say, well, this is a good project, but I don't think she needs 100,000. We'll give her 50, or we'll give her 10, or we'll give her 5, and so they may, knock it down like a few notches, because we're like, it's a good project, but I don't think that she needs that much in year one, or they may say, we'll give her over 3 years 100,000. We're not going to give it to her in year one, though.
Oh.
So they'll make that decision. But I think the most important thing, because they ask for your financials from your church and from your conference. So they're going to look at those line items. Like my budget is not as big. I mean, it's a budget. And so what I do is I say from my budget, I'm going to take, let's say, maybe a third of it or a fourth of it, and I'm going to put it towards the I'm Involved Disability Inclusion Project. So if I take a fourth of it or a third of it, I write that into my proposal that our organization is going to, donate or contribute X amount of dollars, because they want to see that it's not all their money, it's some of your money and most of their money. They're okay with that. But the most important thing, as I mentioned before, is that sustain plan. Once my 100,000 is gone from them, if you only put in from your organization 10,000, they can see that that program most likely won't be sustained unless you have a lot of supporters or individuals who can help you. And when you think of grants, think about in-kind donations also. Some grantors will give you supplies, they will give you technology, but they won't necessarily give you the money, the liquid money. So that's okay. That's okay. I filled out a grant last week for in-kind donations for promo items for the I'm Involved. And if they put their stamp on it, that's fine with me, but again, that way you're not spending that money for promotional items or for t-shirts or for whatever. And I didn't see anything in that particular grant that I'm not planning on reselling, but you could possibly, if they don't have any restrictions, you could, if they give you t-shirts, can you sell them with your logo on it, or if they put your logo on there? So again, they're just trying to get their name out there. And what's exciting to me, many grantors are looking for faith-based organizations. That's exciting to me. So that means we can, when we're writing our grants, talk about our mission, and we can talk about how it's going to help people within the church and the community and any other church. So I do like that. So that's, to me, I'm finding that exciting. I mean, that's a little different from when I first started writing grants 5 years ago. Didn't see it as much, but I'm seeing more of it, that they do want you to have a religious connection in some type of way.
Awesome. I have, go ahead. There's
go ahead.
one here. Someone wants to know, are there funds or funding for those with mental health challenges or mental health disabilities as opposed to those with physical? There may be more in this person's thought for the physical challenges, but what about the mental?
Oh, there are so many grants out there for mental. There are lots of grants, lots. In fact, I was looking at some yesterday with a friend of mine because she's looking at some things for health and wellness. There are some out there, and it will say mental or intellectual challenges. There are grants out there for that. And so when we are talking about grants for disabilities, and that's a really good question, we want to make sure that we are covering a broad span. We don't want to just say the mobility, the structural, attitudinal. Some individuals, they actually, if they're intellectual, you want to make sure that you include everyone. It has to be inclusive. Whatever you're asking for, you want it to be that it can reach anybody with, now this, like the grant I mentioned about yesterday that I saw, it did specify. It did say intellectual and mental. It was very specific. So again, but most of them are pretty general, but yes, that's a good question. Any other questions?
Someone had commented and shared, I'm thinking they're saying it's good to know this, but sometimes it's difficult to get some funding from some of the agencies. It's a lot of work. So is this a lot of work, I guess?
Yeah, it is. So it is, honestly, it is. But what you want to do is you want to have a team of people that are working with you. So maybe you have someone who's working on getting partners. That's all they're doing. They're going to the community, they're looking around and say, who can partner with me? You get someone who's actually writing. I'm part of a nursing organization. When they write grants, which I don't really, I prefer to be a single writer versus having many people write because it flows easier, but they use several people to write their grants. So you may have someone do the background and in different parts of the grant or the objectives, and you just kind of make sure that they're all aligned, whoever's writing. So that's one way to do it, and it's worked for them and they've gotten money before. So it is a lot of work, but if you do the work up front, subsequent grants are not as hard to write, not at all. I mean, like I told you, in the last 2 weeks, I've written 2 grants. I mean, just simply because I already have the data and I just kind of, and some of them are so simple. I mean, literally a 1-page application. Some are more extensive. Others are so straightforward. You're like, oh, I can just put the numbers in here and I can put the objectives in here. And like I said, once you get one grant, especially if it's along the same line as your project for the other ones, you just move the information over, of course, making sure it aligns with what the grantor award wants. But what I would say is, and I was just talking to my friend yesterday, she's going to start writing grants for her health and wellness program at the church. What I said to her is to don't be an overachiever and trying to do it all at once. You know what I'm saying? Just do a little bit at a time. Always make sure your pastor's involved, make sure your committee's involved, because it does require support from your administration to write these grants because they're accepting money from an outside source. And so before I write grants or when I'm writing grants, I involve my executive team, the president, the secretariat, the CFO, because they need to know that money may be coming in for within the organization. So yes, it is a lot of work, but it is worthwhile. When we got that $250,000 grant, I mean, you can do so much. You can do so much with that kind of money, even with the $10,000 that I received for the disability. That's $10,000. It's the retreat. You put that money, a little bit of money towards that, a little bit of money somewhere else, so that you can reach different people, different ways. $10,000 is $10,000 that I didn't have. The other grant I wrote recently was for $25,000. Again, my goal is to, because remember, with these retreats, even with me, I'm excited about the one in September. But remember, individuals with disabilities oftentimes they have limited income. And the caregivers oftentimes may not be working. They may be caring for the individual with a disability. So even if a retreat is $300 could be a lot of money if it's between me, eating or whatever that is. You want to make sure that you make it affordable. So what I said in my grant is that, they can pay a small amount. So that means even if they paid $100, that's going to offset some of the costs, right? And then you can actually augment it. So again, it's really important to really be, it is, whenever I write a grant, I always have someone working alongside me. The pilots that I mentioned in New York, which I love working with them, we met every week. And I actually, every time we met, we went through the information he provided. I would modify it to strengthen it. And then when we finished getting that grant awarded, he felt well equipped to write the subsequent grants. And that's what he has been doing. So you just need somebody to walk alongside you, probably the first time or two, especially if you're kind of like really, eager and want to do it, someone walking alongside you. And once you get it, oftentimes people are pretty confident to write on their own. But again, it's always good to have someone to read it, to make sure it's very clear. But I mean, it's work. It's no joke. It is work. But it's good work. It's money that matters. It can help us with the mission. So all of that. Any more questions? All right. So let me show you really quick. I'm going to show you real quick grant watch. Yes.
There's one. It says, do you charge a fee when writing grants for churches or other CSOs, I think?
Okay, so I have a business outside of Southeastern Conference that I had in place before I came to the office, before I came here. And that's what I was basically doing, I was writing grants for individuals. And so since I've been here, I have not, whenever someone asks me about writing a grant, I just usually write it, I'm saying, help them on the journey. Just because I think it's a conflict of interest if I would charge, a church or a conference to help them to write a grant because of my position. If I wasn't in this position, that would be a different story. But I think my goal, and I really am passionate about it, is helping others to get what they need to do ministry. So the answer would be no. The answer would be no, because I just believe that where we are in this, where we are, we need to help one another with resources. And so the answer would be no.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay. So I know I have like 4 minutes. We're almost at 12. So let me show you really quickly, if I can, a grant that, really quickly. Okay. So focus. Okay. So this is just a grant that I was looking at, and is let me go back and see if I can get to my I have so many things open, so bear with me. Okay. So when you go to Grant Watch, it actually shows you the number of grants in their database. I don't know if you can see this. So they have 27,748. That's a lot of grants. The grants for nonprofits, which is the category we fall in, has 6,510. And then grants for individuals. So if you had an individual business that you wanted to apply for, and small grants or small businesses are 1,199. When you look at the grants you really want to look at is for the nonprofit. That's really what you want to look at. You just click on nonprofits, and you're not going to look at all 6,510, but you want to begin to narrow your focus. So you look at the nonprofits. That's what you want. Choose your location. I live in Florida, so you just choose the location you want to look at. And remember, you want to look at local before you begin looking at government grants, because those are the ones you're more likely to get. And then you go over here with the choose your category. There are a lot of categories. Do not choose all of them, because you will get more grants than you need. But what you want to do is you want to kind of scroll down and say, okay, where do I want? Okay, here's one for disabilities. You see that? So you choose disabilities. And then you can choose maybe faith-based. You can choose as many as you want. So out of the 61 categories, I chose 2, faith-based and disability. I could have chosen more. I could have chosen health. I could have chosen youth. I could have chosen age. I could have chosen all that. But I really don't want to look at all those grants. So let's go ahead and search for grants. There are 91 grants that were found with those 2 criteria that I put in. So again, you want to look at, probably the first thing I look at is the deadline. This deadline is today. There's no need for me to even look at it. The best thing for me to do is keep it moving. Look over here. This one is for August the 9th, which is only a couple of weeks away. So you want to look and see dates. Sometimes instead of looking at dates, I will look at the title of the grant, and then I will look at the date to determine if I want to look at it. But you're looking for keywords. Right now, let's look at keywords. So this one is about for higher education. We don't fall in that category. So just keep it moving. Don't spend a lot of time reading stuff that once you see a word that does not fit what you're looking for, don't spend time. This is for school to work transition. We're not doing that either. This one does say, listen to this one. This one is this is school to work transition sites to promote health among individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Sounds great, but we don't have a school, right? You want to look a little deeper. We could possibly fit into that one, but it does talk about community-based organizations, managed care organizations. So let's look at it and see. Let's see if it's worthwhile. So this is a virtual coach, Health Matters programs. Kind of sounds exciting, a virtual, but look at where the funding source is. It is in the Chicago area, but it's for all of USA. If you find a grant that you think you may want to look at, it is a foundation. So it's not a government. This is the number, and you always want to keep track of the number that may be of interest so you can go back to it, because you always say, where was that grant? What was the name of it? So let's look at it. This is the description: opportunity for USA community-based organizations, managed care organizations, and school to work transition sites. So I don't know, we kind of community, we're church, more of a church organization. Participants will take part in training and certification program to educate individuals with IDD about health and healthy choices. This almost looks like more of a training. Do you think that would be of value? To my audience, I asked that question.
It can be.
Okay, tell me how.
Certifications, there can be a program that is introduced through the disability ministries to be able to help these individuals transition, so that the training can happen in the church, and we can do it in such a way that it can be sustainable, and it's a continuum. So you have your first set that starts through this program, and then you send them out to the into the workforce or into college, or if they're able to, and provide them with the skill that they need to be employable.
Very good. Any other thoughts?
I mean, if this is a project that maybe a church would like to engage in, and it's specific, I would say this is a great opportunity. But it's a specific area. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I do is when I see that, I save it. I actually have in my grant watch. I saved it. I'm going to go back to this. The reason I think it adds value, very much like you said, Mrs. Herbert and Dr. Brooks, we want to expand our knowledge so that we can be a resource. We know people who may have individuals who live in their homes who they're trying to transition from school to work. I have a friend who has a son. She says to me, he's no longer eligible to attend school because I can't remember how old he is, but he needs to be transitioned into the work environment. Right now, I have no resources. I don't know how to direct her, right? But can you imagine taking this program that they're offering? It looks like it's free to me, that we become more of a resource for individuals in the church and in the community. And we can offer the training within our churches, online even. So again, that helps to elevate the awareness about disability ministries. Most times individuals are not involved because they don't know what to do. But this can help individuals know what to do to help individuals with disabilities. So I think it's a great one. So this was actually, God dropped this one right in my lap right here because I had not even seen, I must have opened it, but didn't follow through on it. So this is what it looks like, the description. It gives you the deadline. The most important part is to meet those deadlines and get it submitted. So the next thing is, many times they will tell you about who's eligible. They have that down there. It has schools and recreational centers, but you can always contact the individual grantor and say, would you consider churches? Because we reach a lot of people. We have schools in our conference. Imagine that. So maybe we don't qualify for the church, but we qualify for the school. Isn't that amazing? So again, it has all the information about the pre-application process. You can read through that, and then you kind of can follow that. I'm excited. That's very exciting to me. So the deadline to register is August the 23rd. So once you have that, this is when you can open up the grant. And many times it has the link that you can do the application. So application instructions, you open it up and you just go down and follow the instructions. There's 5 pages to that. And again, I will be happy to send this to you if that's something you're interested in looking at. I'm going to take a look at it from our conference level. So what questions do you have? I know that I am out of time. I would love to entertain any other questions you may have.
Not a question. Oh, go ahead. Liz.
Yeah. You mentioned that GrantWatch and Grant Stations have paid and unpaid subscriptions.
Yes.
So the paid subscriptions, are they expensive? Is there like a range?
So GrantWatch, their subscription per year is $199.
Oh, that's annual. Okay.
You can get it for a month. You can actually subscribe for a month. I don't really advise any short-term subscriptions because once you go in, you don't get, let's say you don't get awarded the grant, you're gonna have to go back and look for more grants. I would say get a year subscription. Like we have one for the conference office. Grant Station is ours for the conference office. GrantWatch is my personal one that I just search for grants and bring them over here. But because I still have my business outside of here. So that's why I keep that one active. But the president of our conference went with Grant Station, purchased it, and I have access to that. So I can look in both of those databases for grants.
They're the same price a year?
Grant Station sometimes will run a special of like $99 a year. So it varies. Sometimes they have a special going. And I think we paid like something very small like that. But the thing is, you want to commit to, if you get the the database, commit to using it so that it's worthwhile and worth your money. I think I would encourage you, if you're really serious about trying to elevate health and wellness or disabilities or any ministry. I mean, we'll begin looking at it for the schools, because that's one of the areas that I'm really passionate about as well. So I'm working with the educational superintendent for grants for our schools. So again, it's benefits many people. It's not just disabilities, but even family life. As you saw, there were 61 categories. But you always want to narrow your focus. Don't get too ambitious, because it can be overwhelming. Try to stick with grants that are very pretty straightforward, like that one pager, really easy to do. There's one that's coming out probably in September, I think it is, or October. And it's from Kentucky Fried Wishes. So Kentucky Fried Chicken has a foundation that their big areas are community services. There's one that's just opened today for community service, remodeling, renovation of buildings. It's very general, very broad, meaning that when it's broad like that, you can renovate and do, however you want to renovate it. And it's $10,000. And the good thing about, they want the project completed within, I want to say 6 months or 6 weeks. It's a short time, but again, I think it's 6 months. 6 months. They want the project completed within that 6-month period, whatever you're doing with their $10,000. So that means you have to be ready, set, and go. You have to have already thought about it and ready. So there's one that's coming up with disabilities. I think it's in September or October. I'm gonna look at it again. I'm gonna apply for that one, because my retreat is in September. But again, there's other things that I want to do with disabilities. Ongoing networking, traveling from churches to churches and doing education, doing regional, workshops, 2-day workshops. So again, we have to keep thinking about what else do we need to do to help individuals become more involved and included in the process. I don't think we do it intentionally, but we have to be more intentional about doing something, right?
And while you mentioned the retreat, can you share more about the retreat you're planning in September?
Okay, so I'm super excited about it. So at that retreat, we're going to have individuals who have disabilities, whether it's mobility, hearing, visual, all of the across the whole spectrum that will be there, that will be participating. And we're going to, give me just a moment, I need to clear my throat.
No problem.
And the goal of that retreat is really to make sure that we begin that culture of involving individuals with disabilities. So they will be participating in every single program. On Saturday night, we're going to have a talent showcase. So many of the individuals with disabilities have talents and skills that we just don't know about, and no one's even asked them ever to show them. So that is going to be one of the big features for it. But it is going to be for leaders of any ministry, because it's our opportunity to educate us and to bind together, work together collectively to make sure that we have that support around us. Remember, we talked about they look for partners in these grants. Well, we need partners to do the ministry. And I'm very glad that I met Dr. Brooks. I would not have met him had I not been at that conference. And so we're now saying, my partners are not only in Florida, but they've extended to Georgia. And so it is going to be one of a kind. It's the very first one, but I've done health retreats before. God, we've been praying every step of the way about what God can and will do. So the opening session is on Friday night, September the 27th. Check-in is at 4 o'clock. Dinner is at 5:30 and 6:30. Right at 7 o'clock, we're going to do our big opening session. And the sessions are pretty short, so they're from 7 to 8:30 because we have to be mindful of individuals who come with disabilities and try to keep them on their schedule as much as possible. And then Sabbath morning, we're going to get up and there's going to be a nature experience, fresh air, beautiful campground. Even though it's called a camp, the rooms are really like well, not a 5-star, but they are very nice, nice rooms. All of them are very nice. They all are equipped for ADA. So it is going to be an environment where I believe it's going to actually help enhance that experience from the time people arrive to the time they leave. That they will go back energized. Those with disabilities, I can raise my hand and say I want to be involved. Those leaders, the leaders are what I'm trying to get to also, is really getting them there, because many times when they give us these positions, it's nice, but if you haven't done it before, or if you don't have a disability yourself, I mean, big something, you just have to really know what is it that you can do. If it's one thing, what is that one thing? And so we're going to have and then um, Dr. Charlotte Toms is going to be there, and she will be actually doing a workshop on Sabbath afternoon, a facilitator of one of our panel discussions. And so I believe with God's help, and by faith, I know that God is going to bless our efforts. But this is a start of beginning a culture of inclusion within our churches. I think this is also a start of saying, what else can we do to provide a network for individuals with a disability? And I also believe that this is another opportunity to help spread the gospel, not only to individuals within the church, but also outside the church. And as I'm speaking, God just dropped something in my mind about what else we can do for that retreat. I'm just going to write it down. So I won't forget, because I will forget. I will forget, and I don't want to forget.
Luis,
all right.
Question?
Yeah, it's gonna be great. We'll do pictures. I'm trying to get a videographer to be on site from start to finish, and just really make it a really not only informative but inspiring time and fun. We'll put a little fun with that as well. A lot of energy. It's gonna be a lot of energy. I'm excited about it.
And for those who may not know, Dr. Charlotte Toms is the North American Division
Yes.
of Disabilities Director. So that's why.
Yes. Yes, she's been on this journey with me. Last year, we were going to do a retreat, and we didn't have the response that we wanted. But God said to me, if you have 10 people this year, which we have more that have registered, go for it. And I am going for it by faith. I'm not looking for numbers. I'm looking for impact. And that's another key word you want to use on your grant, impact. How many people will I impact? I believe if 10 people come, those 10 people will reach 10 more people, or 10 more people, and it's going to reach households. So again, sometimes you don't look at only the people that are sitting in the chairs, you look at the people who will actually hear about it later, who will benefit from it later. So yes, I'm reaching out to leaders, because I believe our leaders, this is an opportunity. It's across all ministries. Disabilities is across every single ministry. And how do we create an environment and a culture where all leaders, when they see someone that maybe has come to their meeting or come to their event, how do we go and move ourselves closer into their space and welcome them and thank them for being here and see how they want to get involved? So yes, it's September the 27th through the 29th. It's over a weekend. We actually will finish up on Sunday, like around 11 or so, just so that people can, if they're driving, then get back on the road, or if they're flying, they get to the airport. So we're not going to go all day on Sunday. It's going to be the finale. It's going to be a serious finale. We're excited about that as well. It's going to be I believe with God's help, it's going to be a lasting and a memorable event that my goal would be to do it more than once a year, maybe twice a year, and just relocate it. So one, station here in Florida. And like I said, we have churches in Georgia. So again, I would probably try to move it up closer that way. So yeah, so I know that, we have churches in Brunswick and Valdosta and all those little areas up in there. So my hope would be to move it at least twice a year to try to reach more people. And again, it's not only for the church, but for the community. Last year when I actually was promoting it to all the churches, like non-Adventist churches, to pastors, and because I was really trying to reach more people. And so likewise, we're going to continue that advertising process.
I don't know if Luis had anything to share on that, but I just want to say thank you so much. Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is supreme. Therefore, though it costs all you have, get understanding." And what you just shared with us, was basically better, in my opinion, than silver and gold. You actually gave us wisdom. You gave us knowledge as to how to go about getting these grants, how to support our ministries. And I can only pray and hope that those who are listening will take advantage of the information shared and will do it. Someone said it takes a lot of work. It takes work. But the reward is,
yes, the reward.
You're doing it for the reward. It's worthwhile. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming.
No.
You want to share?
Yes.
It's been my pleasure.
Yes, it's really been quite informative. This is really the first time I've been in a grant writing training that I can remember, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. So I just want to say thank you, because I currently have 3 proposals.
Good.
That were written by other people. I'll give you that. They were written by other people, and I did one myself. And with all this information that you've just given, now I'm like, okay, this is good information. So yes, and I shared it in a group that I work with internationally, and some of the questions that came from them. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're on. So there's a couple of people who's on from because we're always interested in grant writing. So this definitely has gone international. Yes.
Praise God. Praise God. Well, I think you always want to pray before you write your grant, pray when you send your grant, pray throughout the grant. There's times I've written and then I go back and read it, and God will tell me to reword something or rewrite something. And so it does require prayerfulness over that. And like I say, for our churches, too long we have not maximized, and that's the word, maximize our opportunities of getting grants, because we haven't really thought about it. I think we just kind of look within, and we should. But in fact, there's people within your organization, within your congregation, within your community who may also be a sponsor, that you may want them to be that they may choose to be an individual sponsor. So don't leave money on the table would be my final words. God says you have not because you ask not. And so let's begin to ask God of what else, how can we get resources? How can we get money to continue this mission for what he has given to us, entrusted to us?
Dr. Jennifer, can you close us off with prayer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing that I just didn't do, I didn't give my contact information. So Dr. Brooks, I'll leave it up to you if you want me to put that in the chat, or they can work through you. Either way, however you want to do that. I'll let them work through you. How's that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we're so grateful and thankful for your love and your kindness and your mercies that you've called us to ministry. And it's exciting, dear God, to see what you are doing through us. And so we want to continue that work, and we want to expand our ministries, not only within the church, but in the community, dear Lord, and even sometimes globally, as we've heard, internationally. We want to reach people, but there's times that the limiting factor is the money. And so, Lord, you have opened my eyes to show me that there are individuals whose mission aligns with our mission, and who want to give grant dollars and who want to help us to fulfill your mission. So help us to keep an open mind of how to go forward from this day. I just pray that this was not just information, but it will be application, meaning that we will make a decision that we want to move forward. If it's even for $5,000 or $10,000, just think of all the people that we can help. So God, give us courage, give us stamina, give us energy, give us the desire to want to seek out grants so that we can have the income that we need to do your work. We know you're coming soon, and it's very exciting, but we must work quickly. And so, Lord, help us to be ready when you come in the clouds of glory. Thank you so much, dear God, for this opportunity to share the knowledge that you've given to me. And it's only through you, dear God, that I'm able to do the work that you have called me to do. And I give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
And again, thank you for just being a part of this program. For those who are watching the program, please share it with a friend. If you know a ministry that would really benefit from this, please share it with that individual or that church. But we really want to see God's word prosper in all the fields. And so with this knowledge, let's go and do something with it. Take care, and may God bless and keep you all.
Amen.
All right.